Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
No, thank you, Mr. Attorney General. We do not need your interpretation. Show us the report, and we can draw our own conclusions. We don't need you interpreting for us. It was condescending, It was arrogant, and it wasn't the right thing to do. We have to see the facts. We have to see what the report is. And we do not need an attorney general whose job interview was that the president is above the law, that doesn't think a president can be indicted, to be our interpreter of something that he should just show us. You would think the Justice Department would be busy vetting the report so it could more quickly bring it to the public in public view. Instead, what do? They're going to court to overturn every single provision of the Affordable Care Act. Not a good use of their time. We'll see them in court. I think that impeachment is a very divisive issue in our country. And we shouldn't impeach a president because of a political reason, or we should not impeach a president if the evidence is there for impeachment. But that's not where we are.
I think she's pissed. I really do. I think she's pissed. I think the Democrats have had it with this, Bill Barr summary of what he thinks Mueller meant to have happen. The whole thing. We are in such a strange and corrupt moment in American history. And, this government of ours has been corrupt for a really, really long time. The amount of money that is involved in elections, the amount of money that's involved every single day in politics, the fundraisers from breakfast to lunch to dinner to drinks to after hours, the amount of influence that corporations and lobbyists and individuals with big checkbooks have over our government is legendary. It's not anything new, and that's why for years I kept saying, well, there's nothing new under the sun. And if you really want a clean government, and if you really wanted representation, and if you really wanted to, have your voice heard, then there were several things we had to do. And the first thing we had to do is get all the money out of politics and go to public financing. That would be number one. Number two would be to get rid of gerrymandering completely and altogether. And number three would be to get rid of the Electoral College so it's one man, one vote, and everybody that wants to be president has to campaign everywhere and convince a plurality, a majority of the American people that they are worthy of this office, okay? And those things have not happened, and that is why we are now so deep into a swamp thing culture. The whole government, our country, it's just one big sleaze show, and everybody knows it. And you know what happens when it gets this sleazy? When you have a president who is just a pathological, congenital liar, when you have a president who's threatening, listen, if he took the money away from Honduras, okay, just for instance, do you know how many Americans go to Honduras every single year? Do you have any idea what the cruise industry is, and how many Americans go to Roatan? How many Americans go to Honduras every single year for tourism? You're talking about compromising the safety of 1 million Americans because this president is having a hissy fit over brown people and thinks his base also hates brown people. You're talking about $611 billion worth of trade from Mexico. Let me show you something. Fox News thinks Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala are 3 Mexican countries. Look at the Chiron they ran. Look at the lower third that they ran.
So yesterday we talked about
Look at that.
Potentially shutting down the southern border. 2 days ago. Excuse me. No, that's
Look at that. Trump cuts U.S. aid to 3 Mexican countries. 3 Mexican countries. El Salvador is not a Mexican country. It is a country in Central America. Honduras is not a Mexican country. It is a country in Central America. Same with Nicaragua, same with Costa Rica, same with Panama. They are not part of it. This is so sick and they are so stupid. And these are the people that are leading the fraud march. These are the people that are helping to corrupt our government and to put us knee deep, well, or neck deep now in a disgusting mosquito infested swamp of absolute abject corruption. You got a daughter and a son-in-law that are getting security clearances that they're not qualified for because of personal conduct, because of their own corruption, because of their own drug use. I don't even know who was the drug user that they were referring to in this whistleblower report. But this is just bizarro world. You got Paul Manafort, who's been convicted of fraud and other crimes. You got Michael Flynn, who's been convicted of lying to the FBI. You got an EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt. You got an Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke. All been forced to resign over ethics violations. You got a labor secretary named Alex Acosta who's under fire for a plea deal, with regard to a pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what kind of corruption is this? Can you imagine? I mean, if Hillary Clinton were president and the labor set, let's say it was Robert Reich and he was involved in covering up a freaking human trafficking ring in Palm Beach. Oh my God. What's this? We're not even in the top 20 least corrupt nations on the planet anymore. We've lost our standing. And the financial crisis back in 2008, okay? This was the beginning of abject corruption. This was the beginning of what money could buy, the deregulation of a banking system, systemic corruption inside key financial institutions. That was not about a few crooked mortgage brokers offering bad loans. This was serious stuff that ratings agencies and investment banks and government-backed lenders like Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac and some economists who are now at the Fed, and we find out that they are hundreds of thousands of dollars behind in child support, and they got $75,000 worth of tax fraud. I mean, it's just so sick. Then we watched the thing with the Boeing 737 MAX, okay? And you got 2 crashes in a row, and the United States is like hesitant to ground the plane. We're actually the last country to ground this plane after 2 crashes in a row. You have Ethiopian authorities acting more responsibly than the United States of America, for God's sake. And the people in Ethiopia wouldn't even send their black boxes to the United States. They send them to France because they don't trust the United States. Why? Because our acting Secretary of Defense is a Boeing executive, which I've pointed out to you over and over again. What could go wrong? The FAA regulators are Boeing. They're Boeing people. They're Boeing personnel. There's actually a contract where Boeing gets to sign off on the safety of its own product. You got the college admissions scandal. Oh my God. We used to think, white privilege was just being a legacy. That was affirmative action for rich white kids. Well, it seems like if a parent gives the donation at the right time, the kid gets in. It also seems like the parents can buy test takers to take tests for their kids and get in. It seems like a bunch of corrupt coaches and administrators get these less than fully qualified kids into elite schools by falsifying test results, by passing them off as gifted athletes, literally photoshopping their faces onto gifted athletes' bodies. You got like a rape epidemic in the military. You got a rape epidemic in the clergy. And everything gets covered up. This is corruption. This is the swamp. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.